What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, our Monday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. If you want to make a good first impression on anybody in your life, throw on a Muskox flannel. It's what I do. If I'm on a Zoom call, it pops. If I'm walking into a room, it pops. An ugly, just hideous man like me, it changes the vibe. It changes how people think of me. Muskox flannels, it can change how people think of you too. Plus, comfortable as hell. Perfect for this time of year. Go to gomuskox.com and you can use the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, for $15 off your flannel purchase. That's just for Couch and the Rubes listeners. HOFF, H-O-F-F, at gomuskox.com. Jason, how you doing, brother? Riding right up into my rectum, and it was painful.
Hey, buddy. Oh, hey, is my mic on? Yeah.
Yeah. You're good?
I can't hear myself. Hey. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Sorry. My mic screwed up my headset.
All right.
I'm worried about you, man. You all right?
Yeah, I'm
Did
good.
you have too much fucking NyQuil over the weekend, or
I'm great.
your tweets that people send me? Well, what's up with your boy?
So you know that scene in Old School where Will Ferrell dominates the debate,
And he runs naked?
No, but it's just the debate scene. Just the debate. Focus here. Just on the debate scene. And then comes back to saying he blacked out, right? That's what it felt like with my college football playoff Twitter storm yesterday. I felt like Will Ferrell in Old School. I came back to and I was like, what happened? So
you regret some of it, or
none of it?
No, okay.
I don't regret any of it. I mean, I dominated the debate. I was in a blacked out zone, because it is one of those things. And I knew when it was happening yesterday. I was like, don't spend Sunday on this. That was what I told myself. Do not spend Sunday on this bullshit. And I got a lot of other stuff done, so it wasn't entirely a lost day, but I just knew it is one of my 47 official pet peeves, and it has been for a decade. And I wrote a column about it after week 1 of the first season of the playoff, how it was ruining things because of the 4 spots for 5 major conferences. And it's amazing that it took, really, other than that first year, this long for it to be this bad. They got lucky year after year after year. If this happened in 2017, we'd have had an expanded playoff forever ago. And so anyway.
And Florida State would have lost in the first game of that one, too.
Maybe. Well, we don't know. We didn't see that.
I don't know why everyone's so. I don't know what your take is on it, though, to be honest with you, because I haven't, I think I had to mute you or something.
Well, that's fair. I muted myself. But
at least you know it, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's the difference. If someone goes crazy on Twitter, they admit, okay, yeah, I was going nuts. I don't regret any of it.
I'm 100% right, but I went crazy. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
So you think Florida State got screwed, then, is what we're saying?
Yes, but they were in a tough spot. I think that the committee should have opened that way and said, look, they should have thrown their predecessors under the bus. The people came up and said, this is an impossible task. This is clearly who came up with the idea of, 5 power conferences with 4 spots and thought this wasn't bound to happen at some point. We created this needless angst. Anybody who was part of it, again, should be part of your obituary. I'm sorry. This is so illogical. I think back to people even like Luana Case Simon at Michigan State. Well, worried about the student athletes, and it's going to be 4 teams for a while. The presidents were for this. The presidents. Don't let any president or any administrator who was once staunchly defending this, don't let those people ever act like they're smarter than you in life, because they're not. And it is just so illogical, and it drove me batshit that they couldn't see it. You could take 8 stoned teenagers and put them in a room, and they would come up with a better system. It is just that stupid, and I hate when people who dress nice and have big jobs and act smart do stupid things, and that's what this playoff has been for a decade, and it finally bit them, and it drove me absolutely insane. So that's what happened yesterday. It was just insanity.
Is that your first hot take, or
sort of? Yeah. I mean, it was one of my hot takes. I mean, yeah. And then people would say, well, Florida State's quarterback. Well, what if the quarterback hadn't been injured? then you still got the same problem. And their backup quarterback was actually going to be back for the game. You couldn't judge their last game. That was with their third stringer. Again, if you have 5 children and you cook 4 meals, you're an ass, even if the 5th happens to have a stomach ache.
What did Tate Rodemaker do against Florida that showed you like, oh, yeah, this is a college football playoff quarterback? I mean, that game was going to be ass.
What did Alabama do against Auburn, who's ass? Nothing.
Won the game, right?
Yeah, barely against a shit team. Auburn's like Michigan State.
But it's a rivalry, you know.
I saw Michigan take care of its rival, Michigan State. You know? I don't know. Yeah. It is what it is. The only reason that we're able to move on is because Tallahassee's a long way away, and that I do hope they beat Georgia and that the AP does what it should and we get a co-national champs. But next year we'll never have this problem again. But I do believe that the fact that we came up with this idea, and look, there are lots of reasons for it. This is the Rose Bowl's fault. This is partly the Big Ten's fault. This is the freaking sunset over the San Gabriel Mountains fault. There's a lot of fault that goes trying to protect an old system, and ultimately, by bringing in a 4-team playoff, the idea was maybe we keep some of that system. And what it did is made the rest of the system less relevant. And now you got to go to a 12-team playoff so people don't opt out, and you have a robust postseason. But anyway, that was yesterday.
And we do have a couple weeks before the games. I mean, there would be no way to make it a 6-team playoff. I heard someone say that. Like, you could change the rules of the college football playoff right now. No?
Yeah.
In a couple weeks?
Scheduling be tough.
Yeah.
You know. But, yeah, no. It took me a decade, but in one decade I went from a decade ago this year was the last great Rose Bowl, right? It was the one before the playoff. It was the 100th Rose Bowl. Michigan State was in it. Everybody descended. Half of Michigan State's fan base was in Pasadena.
Took out a loan.
It was incredible. And I've gone. I wondered how long it would take me to resent the Rose Bowl. I am there now. I just wish it would go away. Like, it had its run. It was part of this issue. And it stood in the way, and we've let it stand in the way, and screw the Rose Bowl and its people. And I'm sorry, we're moving on. That's those. So anyway, a lot of thoughts from yesterday, all got welled up into different tweets, and I did not write a whole column because I couldn't. Like, I would get so.
That's when you should write it, right?
I was so fired up that I couldn't put together a string of coherent thoughts, so one after another with transitions, enough to write an actual column. And I also thought, this is what some people would call my greatest hits, or one of them, and people don't always want to read those in columns. So I didn't actually write.
But they do like it on Twitter, though. Apparently,
some of them do. Some of them get really, really into it. So, what is your first hot take, sir?
I think the committee got it right. To be honest with you, I think they kind of. I mean, is Georgia, were they screwed? I mean, they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. I mean, Florida. Mike Norvell was actually sitting there thinking that he was going to make the college football playoff. I knew it. Many other people knew Florida. Why is everybody all flipped out about this?
Because you won every single game you could play, and we don't know.
But it's about the committee's job is to put the 4 best teams.
How do they know? Half these people aren't football people. Gary Barta was once on this committee. I wouldn't let him judge I wouldn't let Gary Barta. Right now, I've got a lemon lime seltzer, a bubbly water here, and I've got a coffee. And I wouldn't, if I asked Gary Barta to do a taste test on which was coffee and which was lemon lime seltzer bubbly, I wouldn't trust him to get that right. And this mother was on a freaking committee. Like, he ran Iowa's athletic program, which probably explains their offense. But we don't know what we don't know. We didn't know in 2014 when Ohio State was a third-string quarterback, and I get they dominated Wisconsin. We just never know what we don't know. We thought Vegas and half the world thought Washington was a 10-point underdog against Oregon. You know, Alabama was a 5.5-point dog against Georgia. Everybody goes, well, they beat the number 1 team. Well, why were they the number 1 team? Georgia with their top 2 targets limping around. Is that a team better than Penn State? I don't know. Like, we don't know what we don't know, and that's what drives me.
But you could say that there would be a case to get pissed off about. No matter what 4 were up there, you can sit there and look down, and you're going to have that no matter what when you have 4 teams. But next year there's going to be 12 teams, and if Florida State wants to go undefeated again, I understand they have a legitimate gripe. But to sit there and be so angry and pissed off, I mean, the top 4 teams are right there.
Well, and it's the responsibility of the media. Like, I just
barely beat Louisville.
When you write your fucking stories, write the story correctly. Understand that there is not a true champion this year. And just write that and make sure that's in the lead. Just make sure that's in the lead. That's all.
I'd rather see Oregon. I'd rather see Georgia again. Ohio
it's not who
State.
you'd rather see. It's who deserves to be there. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about
money. It's about give me the best 2 fucking games and give me the national champion. Florida State wasn't beating any one of those teams that are above them, and maybe a couple below them.
We don't know that.
I do know that.
Do you?
They have a Tate Rademacher. What did he show you in the games that he played that makes you think he's going to win one fucking game in the college football playoff?
The games have to matter, and they won the games. I'm sorry. You can win with defense. You can win. I thought
but you lost your quarterback. It's unfortunate.
Well, and then the other thing teams have got to do is they got to start lying about these quarterback injuries. You certainly don't play your quarterback in games you don't need them. You don't risk it the second day. I mean, it's
hard to lie. His leg was hanging in half there.
Modern medicine. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is lying to us. He's telling us he's coming back, or whatever. Or claim all year that you have this freshman that nobody's seen. We're holding him for the playoff, but this guy. Let me tell you about this guy. Like, just bullshit people because. Yeah, look, it was an impossible ask because I want Alabama, the team that wins the SEC that beats Georgia. I want Alabama, and I want teams to want to play Texas. I want that matchup to happen. I don't want teams to be afraid. Like Michigan didn't play anybody this year, right? And they shouldn't be rewarded for not playing anybody in their non-conference versus Alabama, which hosted Texas. Now that game should ultimately matter. All those teams should be in. It was an impossible situation. I thought Florida State was the wrong team to get screwed. That's all. And I don't care. It's not about what I want to watch on January 1st and what the best matchup is for me. It's about who deserves to be in, and that's what it ought to be. The games have to matter. And if you go 13-0, you play 2 SEC teams against an SEC that wasn't that good this year. They're getting there, and you beat both SEC teams. I understand there's strength of schedule and. The intent in scheduling was really good by Florida State. They did everything they possibly could. They got bad luck and they overcame it with wins. We still don't know what their backup quarterback would have been. He could have grown into the role in a month. He's got a month to prepare. We don't know what we don't know. They screwed it up.
But guess what? Next year you don't have to worry about it.
Correct. But as long as
then what are you going to bitch about?
It's cool. No true champion this year. We're good. I'm good.
And by the way, after the outside of these semifinal and final games, I mean, are you going to watch any of these games?
Well, that's why
when there's a 12-team playoff next year, can we get rid of the ReliaQuest Bowl? I mean, who's going to watch Wisconsin LSU, the Cheez-It Bowl, Iowa Tennessee? I'm a gambler, a degenerate gambler. I'm not watching any of these fucking games. So I don't know why that they still. I mean, Liberty versus Oregon. You excited about that one?
It's hard because the
guys aren't going to play.
That's the thing. Guys don't play anymore. Guys don't care anymore. And the playoff is what killed that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's a whole better system. But now at least we're going to 12, so there'll at least be.
But is there money in these bowl games? These outside fringe bowl games?
That's why they do them.
But why though? Oregon State versus Notre Dame on December 29th. Is Notre Dame getting up for that?
No, but I'll watch.
Maybe Oregon State would. You'd watch it, even though. What if some guys like? What if what's the quarterback?
It really depends. If there's a Premier League soccer game on, I won't watch
Hartman.
But
if Hartman sits there and he doesn't want to play, why would you ever watch that shit?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. No, they've got an issue there. They really do. And eventually maybe you'll get some NIL more tied to these bowl games that'll entice kids, perhaps. But I don't know that that's even the answer. It's even necessary. 12 is better. 12 will be good. This year we don't get a true national champ. My second hot take. I do think. So the transfer portal opened up today, Monday, right? And there are lots more players jumping into the portal, including Aiden Chiles, the freshman quarterback at Oregon State, right? There are some thoughts out, some reporting out there that Michigan State will be certainly and sensibly would make sense one of the front runners to get him.
Justin Thin said 100%.
Okay, it's a crystal ball. I don't, whatever. And crystal balls change all the time. So, and look, Justin, the guys who worked that recruiting stuff. I'm not doubting his reporting. God bless him, because I would hate to live in that world. But I do think, though, and if they get Aiden Chiles and he's the answer, then he's the best guy for the future. Great. But Jonathan Smith also would have an opportunity here if he wanted to make a move on Sam Leavitt. A move that could impress Sam Leavitt. Because part of the reason Sam Leavitt, I think most of the reason Sam Leavitt doesn't like Jonathan Smith is he didn't recruit him out of high school. He recruited Aiden instead. And Leavitt went to Michigan State, and and now feels like this is the coach that didn't want me. But both guys are in the transfer portal. The guy you chose is available if you're Jonathan Smith, Aiden. And so if you told Sam Levitt now, this time I choose you. I've done the evaluation. I screwed up. You're the guy. He's available. We're not offering him. I want you. Now, you'd have to get an answer quickly, and you'd have to play that correctly. But that would be, you have a situation right now. Now, I don't know if Levitt would want to do that, but I'm just saying, like, as much as everybody loves Aiden Childs, there's nothing I saw from him that I don't like more from Sam Levitt. And so if you thought you could get Sam Levitt to stay, that would be my move if I were Jonathan Smith. Now, so
isn't it too late though?
Well, he's in the portal, but it doesn't mean you can't get a guy to
no. But does he feel scorned by?
But that's the point.
The coaching staff maybe not saying, "Hey, come on and join us."
Well, no, he was scorned because, at least from David Harn's reporting, which is a good interview with Sam Levitt, that Jonathan Smith did not recruit Sam Levitt out of high school, so Sam Levitt held that against him. But if you said now, faced with the same choice that Jonathan Smith had 2 years ago, a year ago, between those two quarterbacks, I am choosing you this time. That guy's available for me. I want you. I messed up. You're the guy. I do wonder how that would ring. Now, maybe Levitt is too far gone, too full of himself, to just want something else, which is fine too. Who knows? But I think there is an opportunity if Jonathan Smith evaluated those two guys and saw Levitt as the better prospect now, and based on the little bits I've seen of Childs and the little bit we've seen of Levitt, I kind of like Levitt more. I understand Childs athletically is really – I think Levitt's a pretty good athlete too. I like Levitt as a passer more. That's just where my head is. I think that would be the ballsy move. And again, there's a calculus that would have to be done there on who he could actually get, how quickly it could happen. If Levitt said no, could you pivot and still get Childs quickly? And could you string him? I'm just saying that there's an interesting point there to make because you've got the same two guys available. And if you wanted to make a move on Levitt to say, I screwed up, I think you're the guy, and I'm choosing you here, that would be the move to make. That is my second hot take.
All right.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
God, I almost forgot about the Lions game yesterday with all of this playoff drama. I got to say, I'm really happy that Derek Carr did not tear us apart, but I'm also thankful for Bruce Irvin, who should be the MVP of that game yesterday, by knocking Derek Carr out and Jameis Winston coming in. Thankfully, we got the win there, but the first half, unbelievable. I got to say, the defense, it's going to be the reason why we don't make it far in the playoffs if we don't get a playoff win. But guess what? I don't blame Aaron Glenn. I got to say, I blame Brad Holmes for this. And it's tough to say anything bad about Brad Holmes right now because all of his rookies look unbelievable. And it looks like he's a draft king. But my question is this, just for Brad Holmes. It's like you didn't think at all you wanted to try to shore up that defensive line to get some more pressures on the quarterback. Because like we've talked about, Graham, it doesn't, unless it's Jameis Winston. But other than Jameis, if there's someone back there that's a competent quarterback, they're going to shred this defense. And is the game plan pretty much we need to score 35 points? Because if that's the case, I don't know. I know people want to blame Aaron Glenn, but if you look at the defense, because sometimes they play really well and really hard at times, but he's got no linebackers. They have absolutely no pass rush. And oh, by the way, they have Jerry Jacobs, who can't cover anybody. Great guy. He's kind of like Dre Bly. He'll sit there, he'll get burned 3 times, and then he'll have a pick 6 or something crazy like that. And you're like, you know what? Maybe he'll turn it around. But I think that I'm watching the 49ers. I know there's a lot of weeks left before we get to the playoffs. Anything can happen. But, Graham, watching the 49ers dismantle the Eagles, and I'm looking at that team going, I don't know what we would do as a Lions fan. I'm just trying to be realistic. This whole season, 9-3, the first time that they've been 9-3 since my dad was like 3 years old or some shit. So that's great. But I just think that there's an opportunity missed here where you could have got some defensive line help.
So the question is,
to make a run in the playoffs.
If you're Brad Holmes, are you playing for now, or do you view the draft picks and playing for later?
You always play for now. You have no idea what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, no, I think
something could happen to Jared Goff, and you're dealt with Hendon Hooker as your starting quarterback next year somehow. But
yeah, no, it looks like
you got to attack in the NFL.
It looks like a missed opportunity, and I'm not quite sure. I would love to hear an interview and what they were thinking and what those conversations were, because it doesn't seem like San Francisco had to overpay to make it happen. And now,
but to sign a 38-year-old Bruce Irvin, like that's your solution. I mean, he did get to the quarterback.
No, he
yesterday.
saved him. They won the game because of him. It will be interesting too now, because now if you're a Lions fan, you got to root for the 49ers. You badly need the 49ers to pass the Eagles, because what you do not want to do in the divisional round is be out in San Francisco if you're the Lions. You want to be playing the Eagles, even if that's in Philly. That's a much more manageable game than
even
would be.
Philly, I think Philly's a better team through and through than the Lions are.
Sure. No, the Lions may be doomed by the divisional round. That may be
we're doomed because of the pass of the Detroit Lions, and we're sitting there going, you should sit there and jump and attack at an opportunity that your team is just lacking at a couple areas that you can maybe shore up and maybe get lucky, lightning in a bottle, and go on a playoff run. So,
yeah, maybe the 49ers,
it's tough to rip on Brad Holmes.
Maybe the 49ers will have a quarterback without an arm again. If we can make that happen, that would be
can't root for injuries.
That would be beneficial.
It's bad karma.
So I've got two more quick takes. I'm going to go hoops. I was going to get into Nick Saban in Michigan and that matchup with Alabama, but my guess is we'll do that here in the listener hot takes. But Michigan State basketball Tuesday night plays Wisconsin at home, and Wisconsin's better than I think people imagined. They've got this A.J. Storr kid who's transfer from St. John's, who gives him that sort of athletic wing, not quite Johnny Davis, who he was, but like a similar type. Like that roster needs that guy. He changes who they are. They just beat Marquette. They look good. They look like a really sound team that could be a top 4 type Big Ten team. And to me, if Michigan State is going to be in contention, and you don't usually say this, like first Big Ten game of the year, but this is the sort, they've got to win this game. Like this game will tell us whether MSU is going to have a chance to contend for the Big Ten title. The Big Ten is a long season with a lot of ups and downs. Like we just saw Purdue come off dominating everybody, and boom, they go to Northwestern and they lose. The Big Ten is conference play is difficult. Conference play on the road is difficult. But Michigan State is going to have some hiccups some places. Home game against a top 4 type team in Wisconsin that I think is really good. That's a surefire NCAA tournament team, probably a top 6 seed type team. That's got a lot of veterans that you know well, that you've had success with against in the past. Like this is a legitimate, worthy challenge. You win this game. All of a sudden, you go to Nebraska. You've got a good shot at winning that game. You're 2-0 before you come back into Big Ten play with a win over a really good team, and things feel a little bit better. You lose to Wisconsin. That's a home loss to a good team. Like I think this is the game that ultimately winds up. We look back at it, and this will tip something in the standings, whether MSU is really in contention or not. That doesn't define a season. It's a December college basketball game. But ultimately, when we look back at the standings, we look at their season. This game, to me, and it's not a prove it necessarily. It's a different sort of measuring stick than Arizona, because it's a game where
is it a must win?
No, it's not a must win, but it certainly would be a helpful win, and it's a game against a team you know well and they know you well, and so it sort of says very clearly where you are. And because I do think there's still some things coming down the pike, like we're going to see a little bit what Jackson Kohler means to them, and I don't want to put a lot on. Like Jackson Kohler was a bit role player who had a few moments as a freshman, but really was he a guy that you can count on to really change who you are as a team? Had a good summer, right? We all know that, but the thing about Jackson Kohler that makes him interesting still coming down the road is he's a different type of player offensively, and Michigan State is an offense that needs to change. And so how does inserting him into a role, playing 15 minutes a game or what, change who MSU's offense is? And if it helps MSU's offense unclog some things, become a little different, that could be big for this team, even if it's not him putting up, big numbers. So I still think there's a chance that that's the one thing in their back pocket that changes who they are. Obviously, there's counting on A.J. Hoggard. There's all that stuff. But I do think this game, and Hoggard has played well against Wisconsin, in like 27 assists and 7 turnovers in the last 4 meetings. Like this is a game we'll ultimately look back on. If they win this game, I do think Michigan State, I don't know if they're going to win the Big Ten, but I think they'll be in contention. If they lose it, my guess is there'll be a game or two back, and just even if things go well. And I also think it'll be very clear on where they are. Different than Arizona. Arizona showed us one thing, showed us some potential. They looked outclassed and like a contender all in the same game. This game is much more the sort of team you're going to have to beat night in and night out in the Big Ten, or especially near the top of the Big Ten, to be in contention for the league, and it's a home game. You absolutely got to win.
How about getting off to a nice start tomorrow night?
Sure.
That'd be nice.
Absolutely.
For the holidays.
Just for the holidays?
Come on, Tom.
What is your third hot take?
I think Iowa should fire Kirk Ferentz. I got to say, I felt really bad for Iowa fan on Saturday night. And not that I expected Iowa to beat Michigan, maybe cover the spread. I didn't even expect them to score because the 0 didn't really bother me. It was more of the Kirk Ferentz and the Brian Ferentz, like the laughing and knowing that they're going to get to the Big Ten championship game. I mean, you want to go 10-3. I know that's Kirk Ferentz, he'll get you 10 wins. But is that a fun 10-3 season? Did you have fun? It's kind of embarrassing, right? You're going to go down in history as one of the worst offenses in the history of college football. So why bring this guy back? Because he gets you 10 wins and a 12-team playoff, he'll sneak into that, right? Because he'll probably win 10 games and say, oh, Kirk Ferentz, he's got a team here. But it's just pathetically bad, and he kept his son, the nepotism that kept him around. That's the problem, the loyalty, the nepotism. It kills programs. It kills franchises. So you sit back and you go, well, this guy's an automatic 9-10. I mean, yeah, that's somewhat great, but if you're going to be producing 10-win seasons like this, Graham, what's the fucking point?
And you won't be in the future with the changed Big Ten.
No, and you had a college football playoff defense, and not only could you not even score for those guys. I mean, they played their ass off against Michigan.
Yeah,
to keep them to 26.
They were 2018 Michigan State, and that Michigan State team went like 7-6, and so that's who this team was. They just played in a different division. They finished some games, whatever. But
Kirk Ferentz needs to answer for giving his son one more chance. I mean, the ridiculousness of the story before the season of he has to score 26 points per game or he's fired. Well, what about you, Kirk? He's your son. You let him run this shit for 6 years into the fucking ground. So when is it on Kirk Ferentz? I understand everybody in the Big Ten that covers him, likes him. He's a great guy. Matt Shepard, Hall of Fame bullshit. But how about you do something with your program?
Well, he's done a lot, and what he's done more.
But this is embarrassing.
This is what he's done more than anything is every time he's lost it, he's brought it back, which is hard to do. He's a legend there. They're not going to fire him. The AD has spoken glowingly of him, so that's not going to happen. However, that doesn't mean you can't have behind-the-scenes conversations that were happening with D'Antonio in 2019 going into 2020 before he stepped away. Same conversations need to have. Do you have enough steam to keep doing this? And you need to revamp some things on offense, and that needs to be understood. And if you're willing to do that, you can keep going.
Why? He's not going to get fired. Why? It's going to go one ear in, one ear out the other, right?
No, but
he's unfireable. You just said.
Well, but if he's insubordinate, he's not unfireable. If that,
I doubt Kirk Ferentz would be insubordinate. Well, then he's going to just tell you what you want to hear, nod, and we just win 9-10 games. And
but it's who you hire. It's what you're willing to do. And I understand you don't have to change all your philosophies, but I mean, the Kirk Ferentz era is coming to a halt, and there's part of me that's frustrated as hell watching Iowa. I mean, it's watching what's going on there, and it's not just. It's almost how, and I know their fan base isn't thrilled by everything, but it's just this idea that they've accomplished something. Like you also wasted something. I think you're right on that, and that's
they wasted more than they won this year. I mean, it's a hollow season. I mean, even if they win the bowl game, does it matter? And you're 11-3. I don't know.
It's a good question. All right, you ready to dig into these listener hot takes?
Yeah. Eric Schultz up first. Number 1, feel bad for Florida State, but the committee got it right. So happy it's going to 12 teams. 2, Tuesday is a must-win for MSU hoops. And 3, Jonathan Smith brings in Aiden Childs and another QB, and we're fine there next season. Levitt goes to Washington and is a Heisman finalist before his career is over.
So,
I agree with his number 1. I hate to say that committee got it right, but no one wanted to watch Florida State other than Seminole fans.
I don't care what we wanted to watch. I want I want the playoff to be. You have to earn your way in, and you want the best. I want it to be deserved, and Florida State deserved to be there.
People want chaos; they got it.
Yeah, well, if it's just an entertainment invitational, then that's fine. But it's not a national championship, and that's cool too. We had Michigan State once claimed a national title and a year they finished second in the Big Ten. So college football is just full of bullshit for years and years and years. We can just claim them, we can share them, we can do whatever. The Couch and the Rube national champion is already fucking Florida State, and that's that. So they can claim that, and that's all you need. You see one person to announce you are the national champion, and you are the national champion. I do think there's enough to number 3. There's enough going around in the portal. If Aiden Childs, did I call him Chiles here? I called him.
You did, and I was trying to figure out maybe I was saying it wrong.
It's Childs.
Yeah. It could be Chiles.
It would be great if it's Chiles. We should just call him Chiles, like Hogard, Hocker, forever. Chile Childs.
Cockburn.
Yeah.
Dominic next. Number 1, Iowa football fandom has got to be the most excruciatingly empty feeling possibly imaginable. Nothing I endured with Jay Johnson or Couch is comparable to Brian Ferentz. No concepts, no movement, no first downs, just wide open nepotism. They have a college football playoff level defense too. 2, Graham, the format of the show is fine, but if you're looking to crack down on the show times, you cannot spend 17 minutes on Brentford parlays and save me a kidney stone or 12. 3, 49ers are in an absolute wagon. And bonus take, Couch, my baby. If you're going to be a Twitter warrior, you should expend your energy more efficiently by going ham on John U. Buttboy or David Shitster. Jesus.
Nothing was efficient about my effort yesterday. So, again, I blacked out, came to. There's a lot of tweets down there. Believed them all. Dominated the debate. Was happy about it.
Did you go after John U?
I did not.
Oh.
I had no reason to. I didn't even see his. It's weird. I don't even see. Like, I'm glad I don't see David Schuster's tweets. Mm-hmm. I don't see some of our listeners. We are going to go to some sort of Google form. Like today, I missed people's tweets that were in this morning in time, and I looked just before the show and we added them. But it was like, why didn't that show up earlier? I don't know. Just it's Elon. Elon's thing doesn't work. So that's what that is. Yeah.
JD next. Number 1, the Lions need to win at least 3 more games or they are losing the division. Packers won't lose another game until the playoffs. 2, hope Michigan's had their fun the last 3 years. Reality returns after Saban claps those cheeks. And 3, the quarterback, Jonathan Smith, lands out of the portal, will be someone no one expects, and will lead MSU to 8 wins. By the way, I'm sorry, Green Bay. When we did our picks with Harry, I really thought the Chiefs were a lock there. But Jordan Love, I got to give it up to LaFleur too.
They looked
impressive
good
yesterday.
They looked really good. No, that one bit me. I had him I did something stupid late, and I was so pissed. I had one of those 4-team 13-point teasers, and I was like, yeah, I don't really trust this game, but it's safe to put the Chiefs plus 7.5.
You'd think so.
You would think. And, of course, it winds up at 8 because they can't pick up a first down. He takes us. I mean, even Jordan Love screwed that up. If he just picks up a first down, then they can.
Well, the pass interference at the end there.
Well, that would have helped. But also, if they just picked up a first down, they could have knelt instead of kicked a field goal. It would have been nice, and then I would have just lost by 5 and would have covered. Anyway, to the Saban part is going to be really interesting here because, I mean, you heard the groan by Michigan's collective team watching the, I don't know, groan's the wrong word, but the reaction, when they found out they were playing Alabama.
No, that was because Florida State was left out.
Yeah, it's not. But
I got to say, that's a good excuse.
It's an understandable reaction. That would be my reaction if I were them too. Like,
fucking Bama.
And
Saban.
And Saban, all these years later, and he's beaten up Michigan State a couple times, but becomes Michigan State's white knight again. And I don't know if Michigan State fans have ever rooted harder for Nick Saban than they will during this game, and that includes all the times he was at Michigan State.
Sports Guy 1919 next. What absolute fucking horseshit that Florida State did not get in. Want to talk about eye test? How about Alabama needing a miracle to beat Auburn, who lost by 21 to New Mexico State, and LSU by 30, who's Florida State beat?
Yeah. No, the committee doesn't know shit, and they don't know how to talk it up. I mean, it's just it is what it is. It's.
I just like that you guys thought that they were going to get it right. Even if your terms, like I don't agree with you guys, but you thought that was actually going to happen.
Though. Well, they got it so wrong because the other problem is if you really think Florida State should drop, and because of the quarterback situation, then they're also behind Georgia. They're probably also behind Oregon. They're way down, and you put them between. So you partly did what was deserved. You made them 5th. You put them between Georgia and Alabama. Like that is illogical. And when they that's my problem with this whole thing. It's people who have made it decent to a decent place in this world. They're big-time athletic administrators, school presidents, other things. They've done well, and they do this illogical shit. Again, don't let any of these buffoons ever act smarter than you, because they're not. They're not. I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you screwed up. I don't care how much meth it doesn't matter. These people are not smarter than you, because simple logic freaking matters in this world.
Mr. Benjen, number one, fuck college football since the games don't even matter. Undefeated. In any other sport, FSU would be in the playoffs. 2, TV decides everything. Who is in the playoffs? ESPN and SEC corruption. Money decides who is in that conference. And 3, recruiting rankings drive actual rankings. Not a blue blood program? You're fucked.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think the 12-team playoff will prevent us ever again from not getting teams with a chance to win it in. The teams that get left out from now on will be teams that are like, 13, 14, and it's like, they deserved an opportunity, but they weren't going to win it. The teams that really have a chance to win, and maybe you could say there are 8 of them this year. I don't know, but it's about as many as there's ever been. But say there were 8. The top 8 are never going to get left out again, and to that, I'm grateful.
Kurt Wisniewski, number one, the College Football Playoff Committee got it right. Washington versus Texas, and Bama will put Harbaugh in a bag and send him to the Bears. 2, the Lions will clinch the NFC North in 2 weeks. And 3, MSU will have 2 transfer portal QBs on the roster in December, Dante Moore and Sam Levitt.
Oh, interesting prediction. The Lions still have work to do. I mean, they're 3 games up, right? So they should be good, but it's not. Yeah. You cannot trust the Lions. That's the problem we're at now. You
can't trust the NFL.
Can't. Yeah, I don't even understand how the game. Why are there even betting lines on the NFL? It doesn't make any sense. You can't trust anybody
because you can't just watch it. It's fun as that. Fart Soup. Only need one for you this week. Couch had the single greatest day in Twitter history on Sunday. Oh fuck! Threatening the College Football Playoff Committee, giving FSU the national championship, telling Stephen Brooks to go to hell. For real? That shit was crazy, and I loved every second.
It was because Brooks thinks they got it right, and he doesn't. He just cares. I mean, I don't know. Brooks is I was just over at Tom Izzo's.
Nice guy.
I was over at Tom Izzo's press conference, and Brooks was spewing his bullshit. And I love Stephen Brooks, but I can't.
I think he also hates baseball to death.
Yeah, interesting character. But I know I like.
He's
Stephen.
not wrong. Matt Pittock next. Number one. As an MSU and Florida State fan, I greatly appreciate your college football playoff takes, particularly the Jordan Travis Heisman point. 2, the college football playoff lost sight of its original purpose to create a space for the teams with legit national title claims to settle things on the field. Texas versus Bama was already settled.
It's a good point, and it was week 2, and you want those teams to play that, and ideally you just want to have a 4-team situation, but. You're right. Texas and Bama don't need to play again, right? Why would you? I mean, that's the thing about the conference championship.
Yeah, but how long ago was it in the season? Right?
Well, that's fair. That's fair. But like with like Oregon and Georgia, certainly you say, well, the conference championship games, part of the purpose for them is they act as de facto play-ins, and so they already had their opportunity. They don't need another opportunity. I do like so. By the way, Jordan Travis was my 3rd vote when I entered my Heisman picks or votes. And he was nowhere on my radar. But if he's going to be the most important player in college football, then God damn it, he's on. Sorry for swearing there. But we'll fix that in post. Then he's going to be 3rd, and we're not supposed to share a ballot. But the Heisman Trophy pissed me off, so I'll just let you know mine was Michael Penix is the for winning the Heisman, and number 2 I had Marvin Harrison Jr.
Cinemod next. Number 1, the reaction video of audible gasps from the Michigan team after Bama was announced as the 4th seed was hilarious. 2, Michigan State will win the Big Ten regular season. Purdue ain't shit. And 3, people who drive the speed limit in the left lane and don't move over are complete ass.
Complete ass.
And if there was a gift card to give you, Cinemod, I would give it to you. Because number 3 is dead on.
Oh, man.
Complete left lane hogging people doing the speed limit or 5 under.
By the way, speaking of speeding tickets and Stephen Brooks and complete ass. Yeah. So Stephen Brooks, again, wonderful guy.
Yeah. Great family man.
Slightly better traveler than Chris Solari. in terms of common sense, practices. But he never rents a car anywhere. He always thinks he can just Uber it. And sometimes in these towns where we get out of press boxes at 2 a.m. and you're in the middle of nowhere, there isn't an Uber. And so a lot of us wind up giving him rides. Not a big deal when he's staying near us. But in Iowa City this year, somehow we all stay in Cedar Rapids, which is a decent-sized town. Mm-hmm. He was like 15 miles north of me on the other side of the city. And like 1:30 in the morning, I drove him all the way back to his place. So it's an extra half hour before I can even start my column. And I'm looking at my Avis bill, and I can't figure out why there's this extra $115 charge. I'm like, everything's covered. I don't know what's going on. It was just this weekend. So I call Avis, and they're like, oh, no, it's a go through your email. Look, you got photographed. It's a camera speeding ticket, and we cover it for you, and then we charge you. So I got a speeding ticket, and I was going 68 and a 55. I didn't know it was.
Can we get that picture?
I can get the picture for you. Yeah. So taking Stephen Brooks back to his hotel because he's the only guy who stayed 15 minutes north of the city and didn't rent a car cost me an extra $115. So that was not why I took it out on Stephen Brooks, but I'm just saying.
Does he get repaid for a car? Car rental?
Yeah, he should.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not even more than an Uber half the time. It's just one of those things like Solari, who will sometimes, book a flight that goes through Port-au-Prince on its way to Davenport. It doesn't make any logical sense. It's sort of like the selection committee. That is a story almost worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. Unbelievable place to hang this holiday season. When you're looking for a cozy spot, it's cold outside, got the frost on the windows, great beer in hand, sitting at the bar. Midtown Brewing Company, as good as there is for a date, a drink, trivia on Tuesdays, brunch on the weekends. Go to midtownbrewing.net to take a look at their menu. And this time of year especially, I love their American Stout. If you're there and you like a stout beer, it's American Stout at Midtown Brewing Company.
Or if you like Tim Stout.
Ezra
next. Who cares? Since FSU lost their quarterback, they are not the same team. Oh, my God, so boring. They could be Iowa next. Next year is 12 teams anyway. So happy for that. Anyway, Alabama is best. Michigan has just discovered karma. And if you want to cry, do it for 2016 Penn State.
Or 2014 TCU. Look, there are a couple other examples. This is the worst one, though. And they are not the same team, but we don't know what team they are. And it wasn't their backup quarterback wasn't who played in the last game they just won. That was a third-string guy, a true freshman, or a redshirt freshman, whatever he was. We don't know what we don't know.
Plus-size softball dad next. Number one, in my heart, you wrote the Coach Show story just for me, and it's my favorite thing you've ever written. But it will be replaced by the Avon Barksdale story if that is written. 2, my fear is that someone has put me in the Matt Shepard Hall of Fame. It's not a bad place to be, I guess. 3, some of you are unseasoned Spartan fans, and it shows. The Blue Wall started with Joe Falls long before the Robert Traylor rollover.
I think, if I was to redo high school now, I would call being in the friend zone in the Matt Shepard Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? She says I'm a nice guy. Ugh.
Not quite the same thing, but yeah.
No, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's not the perfect analogy. By the way, I do. So he's talking about this story I did on Michigan State's softball coach last spring, or he's talking about that. And the Avon Barksdale story he's referring to is Avon Barksdale, the character on The Wire, and that actor who looks like Trey Holloman. And at some point, I'm just going to ask Trey because I think it'd be funny if he's had that comparison before. And
I'm guessing he's heard it. Maybe.
I don't know. These guys are young. He was born during the Wire's run. So
that means he doesn't have any idea. He also has a thing in his hand that's a phone that can look up anything, anytime, anywhere.
I know, but think about this. Think about when we were 20. All right. Think about 2000. And think about a movie that came out in 1980 or a show that came out in 1980. Think about it was like Dynasty or something. Cheers was out 83, 94. Think of it was like, I don't know if Dynasty was out. I just came up with Dynasty. I don't even know when Dynasty was on it. Give me some Hoff. When was Dynasty on there?
Feliz Navidad.
Woo!
Feliz Navidad.
Free Ubers.
Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y felicidad.
Oh, it was on 81, 89. So that doesn't even work. It would have to be before Dynasty. But would we know who that actor was? That's what I'm saying. I understand that times.
If I had a laptop on my lap that I could look up anything, I would go, oh, yeah.
Okay, that's me.
So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just these kids that just they can look up whatever they want. That's all I'm saying. Nestle's Quick Hotel next. Number one, the regular college football season meant nothing. Bama is in based off of 10 previous seasons of success, not what they actually accomplished on the field this year. 2, there's just no way the Lions get past a team like the Niners with this defense. And 3, U of M would lose to FSU.
I think U of M versus Florida State would have been competitive, and I'm sorry if people disagree with that. That
with Rademacher, you have a lot of faith in him that he could get it together in a couple weeks.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. I am glad we saw the Niners look like this, though, because usually it feels like to me the game we saw yesterday from the Niners would happen against the Lions. Like you at least want to know what the beast looks like, and we just saw it. So now you got to devise an attempt to try to.
I just like how Brock Purdy is like Joe Montana now, but like a month ago, complete ass. People were writing him off, and now he's Joe Montana.
Well, and part of it's because he's got 2 unique type of weapons, right? I mean, Christian McCaffrey is something that's different, and Deebo Samuel is something that's very different. And the way they use them, what you basically, when they have both of them healthy, they're impossible to stop. What you need to happen, frankly, and I'm not rooting for injury, but I sort of am, you just need one of them not to be available. And at that position, it's possible. So if one of those guys isn't healthy, they're a very different team, and the Lions are going to need that.
Max Spade, number 1. Jared Goff still isn't a baller, but that last third down conversion was a baller play. 2, why can't a healthy Tyson Walker be the team's leader over an inconsistent Hogard? And 3, if you have to watch a movie with kids over the holidays, Leo on Netflix is tolerable.
Interesting. It's good to know. Walker can be the leader in a certain sense, and so could other guys. The problem is if the guy who's supposed to be your leader is on the roster and is sort of a stick in the spokes because he's not leading, and people are still looking to him, and it's when your role is defined as the guy and you're not the guy, that gums up everything else. And so it's not that you couldn't. If A.J. Hogard was not on the roster, I think Michigan State would have a lesser ceiling to some degree, but would also have a higher floor.
And Izzo doesn't want to give up on Hogard because basically if you give up leadership, right, I mean, you lose Hogard, I'm guessing.
And your ceiling, like I don't believe MSU's ceiling is high without him. I think Izzo knows that. Yeah,
I agree. Zeke, the Wonder Dog fan page next. Number 1, as a licensed attorney, I will gladly take Couch to court. He won't mess anything up unless it's for a speeding ticket. 2, Rube, sorry for loving Zeke, but he's literally a wonder dog. Appreciate you. Listen, I'm not angry with your fandom. It's just like it was one of your takes or Twitter questions.
It was also late in the show last time. I made sure it was earlier in the show.
No. It was like 4 weeks in a row. It's like, all right, we get the bit. You can beat Zeke, the Wonder Dog fan page. We'll read it. But that was it.
Okay.
Do what you like. I love dogs too. Sean Liverance next. Does Jim Leland's love child, Don Kelly, introduce him at next summer's Hall of Fame induction ceremony?
I was happy to see Leland get in. I was happy to see
he better crush heaters the whole speech.
Yeah.
Like his whole speech, please. But I was shocked that he's not in. Like, what are we waiting for?
Yeah.
Jimmy Smokes? He's a legend, right? I mean, what? He just got into the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and you think about it. I mean, Jim Leland did not win a World Series with the Tigers, but you think about how fondly he's aged. And I'll say this about Izzo. Like, even if Izzo never wins another thing, and say he had 2 or 3 more years that were just like they've been, over time, like 10 years from now, the way Izzo would be honored as he waved at Breslin Center would be insane. It would. I mean, the way we think of people, like certain people age well. D'Antonio is aged pretty well, notwithstanding being on the sidelines this season. But Jim Leland to me is, and I covered Jim Leland, and my only time covering the Tigers was in 2008, and I was the backup beat writer for Booth Newspapers. And he was unbelievable because you just learned, like, they don't even cover him. They don't even have managers like him very much anymore. Usually they do press conferences and all this shit. He would have beat writers in his office. Sometimes he'd be laying on his couch that had been folded out into a bed where he'd slept the night before with his toes sticking out of his socks and, still not fully dressed and just he would bring TV people in there and he would feed them bullshit, and they would waddle out with their cameras back into the clubhouse, and then he'd give a totally different story to the beat writers. He'd have real conversations. He was just outstanding, and he would say things off the record or with so many profanities that you could never use. And my favorite one ever, and I'm still looking, I think I have this somewhere on a tape and I can't find it, is people were getting really upset with Dontrell Willis because he wasn't very good, and he was part of that trade with Cabrera when they brought those two guys in for Andrew Miller and Cameron Maben. And he was getting frustrated because he was like, you guys got to understand how good that Miguel Cabrera is. It doesn't matter if Dontrell Willis sucks. Like, we got Miguel Cabrera. And my favorite thing, he just got pissed off eventually, and he just said, look, I would trade those two motherfuckers and about 10 more motherfuckers for just that motherfucker.
We're dropping MF.
And it was one of these. Now, I don't know how you quote that in the next day's, Grand Rapids Press, but yeah, he was a gem for sure.
Matt C. next, number 1. Michigan players angry and sulking over getting matched with Bama shows the committee got it right. Saban is going to hammer them, and it'll be a nice little send-off before their last 3 years are vacated. 2, you know what you do to a program that just lost institutional control and is a bunch of cheaters? Sick Nick Saban on them and deliver prison justice to that scumbag Michigan program. And 3, what's going to be worse, Jason's bid upstate or what Milroe does to that Michigan D?
Oh, the bid upstate. I love this bit. I love that this has become a thing.
It is great. Yeah, I enjoy it. Large bid upstate.
Yeah. No, look, Saban has a chance to become, like, he's already the what if at Michigan State, but he has a chance to become a little bit of an MSU legend here if he can just put the hammer down.
Halama next. Feeling bad for Florida State by national media, but the College Football Playoff Committee got it right equals thoughts and prayers.
It does have a little of that thoughts and prayers. Like, what are you going to do? Yeah, I'm not really here for a solution, but this is because there is no solution. It sucks, and we let it get here. And I understand it could have been fixed by this year if the alliance hadn't gotten in the way, including the Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12. RIP. But also, it shouldn't have taken this. The fact that it was around 1 year was too much. The fact that after the first year there wasn't this huge movement to change it is absolutely ridiculous. And that's all.
Kevin from Rochester Hills next. Number 1, Bama will beat the cheaters by 40. 2, Lions defense will keep them from winning the division. And 3, the committee realized Florida State is a MAC school with good weather.
Not quite. Have you ever been to Tallahassee? Tallahassee's Florida State's a fun campus, real fun campus. Although there's some fun MAC campuses. Miami, Ohio is not a bad spot.
Just like Florida State. It's the Florida State campus of the MAC.
Yeah, that's what I've heard in Oxford, Ohio.
By the way, just reading number 2, it makes me cringe because if they lose the division somehow, right, after all of these years and we're on the track to win it, I'm going to be devastated.
Okay, so let's look at the Lions' schedule. They're 3 games up, and this week they have the Bears on the road. Then the Broncos, who are better at home, at the Vikings, at the Cowboys. They're not going to lose the division. They're not. Because the Packers. The thing that's scary is the Packers' schedule is win-outable. I don't know if they're consistent enough to do it, but it truly is. I mean, the Packers they're through their toughest gauntlet. It was the Lions and Chiefs, and so the Lions do need to win to be sure. They need to win 3 of those games, but. I mean, if you can't beat the Vikings once, the Broncos and Bears, I don't know.
It's just amazing that we saw Jordan Love at Lambeau, just complete ass. I mean, it's the same season, and now people are going, I see you get some Aaron Rodgers things in him now.
It's almost
the fuck? Like, what?
It's almost like a quarterback can grow into a season, like Florida State's backup might with a month of preparation.
You can't have your leg cracked in half.
No, but if you're the backup, you might actually be better a month from now with a little bit of practice. I don't know, maybe.
Matt Boone next. Number 1, the 4 teams were the best teams to play in college football playoff, but this year proved why we needed more teams in the college football playoff. 2, Iowa defensive coordinator Phil Parker should be paid $2 to $3 million and given the right to run MSU's defense how he wants. 3, Kirk Ferentz versus Lincoln Riley will be a battle of 2 different ideologies.
That is a crazy bowl game. Iowa USC? Is that what it is? Jeez. Yeah, that is.
It is?
Hold on. Is that right?
No. Is that right?
Hold on.
Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y
No, Iowa plays
Tennessee.
Is there a Lincoln on Tennessee's team? Or maybe there's a link. I don't know.
He's talking about next year.
Oh, I got you. I'm totally, apologies. I was excited to bet USC in that game, actually. I was like, because Iowa's not going to be able to score against anybody, so it doesn't really matter if you have a good defense. Never mind. I totally. Phil Parker would be a good get for Michigan State for sure.
Andrew Gauthier next. Number 1, Jamison Williams is becoming a really impact player for this Lions team, slowly but surely. 2, Laporta is perhaps Brad Holmes' best draft pick yet as a Lions GM. And 3, add a top-tier defensive end and some line depth in this year's draft, and this team could be contending for years to come, regardless of the quarterback. I love Laporta.
Yeah, that was a hell of a draft pick.
Man.
That is, that guy.
Tight ends usually don't put up the numbers he has currently all season long. So,
and he's young enough to not have to pay him for a while. That's
the thing as well. You let Hawkinson go and get overpaid by your division rival,
100%,
and then you get Laporta.
No, Brad Holmes done a lot of good stuff. We complain about the and it looks like a miss. It looks like they should have done more with the defensive line or defense, but we
should be able to. We're just talking about it out loud. There's no hot seat, no fire Brad Holmes, any dumb shit like that. We're just,
By the way, a
little
bit of potential breaking news. Something to keep an eye on. I'm hearing from somebody I know that it looks like Sam Leavitt might be headed to Nebraska.
God.
So
wow. Thanks for that update.
Sorry, yeah. I'm not
a letdown.
Yeah.
All right. Tim Horton next. Number 1,
I'm not saying it's happening, but that's what I'm hearing. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Tim Horton, number 1, all conference championships plus non-national title game playoff games should be on campus of a higher seed. 2, A.J. Hogard will receive first-team All-Big Ten honors. And 3, if Jonathan Smith recruits Ohio and rural Michigan well, even decently, he will be successful. If not, his teams will struggle.
Yeah, you've got to recruit Ohio. And I think he'll be successful because I think he knows. The question really, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is the NIL component. But I think he understands what he needs to do, and he's a guy who knows how to execute it, and that'll be fine. A.J. Hogard, first team All Big Ten honors. If it's going to happen, it starts against Wisconsin. He's got to and he's played well against them. It's going to have to be consistent. It's going to have to be at another level than we've seen, and they're going to be quicker starts. And he has the talent to do it, but like what we've seen from a guy like Doug McDaniel so far is better and more consistent, even though Michigan's as a team isn't that good.
Mojo Jojo. Number 1, the collective amnesia around the fact that many national champions of yesteryear are essentially made up from newspaper headlines and athletic department claims is hilarious given the current self-seriousness. Condolences to FSU. May Bama roast the Wolverines. And 2, wife had us watch our first Hallmark Xmas movie last night, and it wasn't terrible. What's happening? Spin zone me, Graham and Jason.
Well, a couple things. One, I watched a couple Hallmark movies this past weekend that were both of high quality that I would recommend. One, A Biltmore Christmas, really good, really good. Bethany Joy Lenz, one of my favorites. She's fantastic.
What's her name?
Bethany Joy Lenz. Just fantastic. She's good. She's in.
Who the fuck knows who that is?
Oh, lots of people. Yeah. She's in Snowden Christmas too, which is one of my favorites. She's absolutely fantastic.
You mentioned her like she was fucking Meryl Streep though.
And then Norwegian Christmas is really good and well done, and they both have like higher budget quality type things to them than a lot of Hallmark movies. Both fantastic. Just watched that this weekend. Really, really good. Norwegian, a little bit of sports element to it too. A Norwegian Christmas and a Biltmore Christmas.
They celebrate Christmas in Norway?
Apparently so. Yeah. But fantastic Hallmark films. My recommendations for today: you can get yourself a muskox flannel, some hot cocoa, sit on the or a stout beer, whatever it may be, and sit there on the sofa and take in a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Shep next. Number 1. It's great that MSU is bragging about Smith's contract and a bump in the assistant salary pool, but every day that goes by without a press release confirming an annual commitment for a top 20 NIL annual budget is very concerning. 2, I need to go to a Lions road game next season. Have been before, but it looks substantially more fun. And 3, are we sure Monty Williams is the guy?
No, we're not. Unfortunately, they paid him a lot for a lot of years. I don't. Right now, so far, don't
Doesn't
like
go
the hire
against
at
the
all.
cap. It's not out of our pocket.
Right. Yeah, I don't like the hire at all. I don't think he's the guy. And
don't feel bad for Tom Gores.
It just whatever it is, and I get that they are playing with a deck that is fractured without key shooters and veterans, and it would have been a rough start. And if I don't know how they got 7 injuries at once. This is basketball, not football. I don't know what they were doing, but I'm not sure he's the guy. I don't think he's a great coach, and I don't know why they paid him like one. I don't know that he's ever proven that he's a great coach. I think he's an okay coach, but he got paid like a great one. I would like the Lions road games right now with this sort of traveling road show look like a lot of fun.
Oh, God, yeah.
You went to one in Green Bay this
Lambeau,
year. Yeah, it was incredible, right?
Oh, God, yeah. It was absolutely the best day of my life. But actually the best week of my life, I think.
Yeah, it includes every moment you've had with Therese. So that's
well,
incredible.
That's a given, right?
Is it?
Yeah, it's well known, right? I mean, I can't have my own kind of dreams. I got to it has to be wife this, wife that. I'm sorry. It's the best. It was the best week of my life.
I appreciate your honesty.
And it's comparable to the week in Mexico getting married, but shit. I mean, to be honest. Chris Eastlick next, number 1. Let's not forget Gary Barta said, set aside watching the games, and this year's chair cited Bo Nix's completion percentage. This shouldn't be surprising at all. 2, if I have to hear adversity and Michigan in the same sentence again, my head might explode. And 3, Michigan has an offensive line problem. They are not the same unit and will be exposed.
It'll be interesting. They're not 100% there. I think they've got decent depth, but Alabama will test that a little bit. I'm with you on the Gary Barta stuff, the chair this year, a lot of these folks. The lesson in all of this is just apply for jobs. You may not think you're qualified, but get in a room and have an interview, and if this is who you're up against, who needs a degree?
Hell, even lie on your resume.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'd rather have somebody who lies on their resume than these dolts. Yeah.
David Jackson next. Number 1, Bama's inclusion was simply a TV ratings move. Screw FSU. We can't have SEC fans not watching. Signed the selection committee. 2, NCAA is fiddling while Rome burns regarding Michigan because of the Fox ratings for their OSU game. There is no way the NCAA was going to keep Michigan and the TV viewers out of the playoff. Note how the news on the scandal has tapered off to nothing recently. That's no coincidence. And 3, so this is what the season has come down to. MSU is left to hope that Hogard will magically start playing hard and that Kohler's summer improvement we read about is real and meaningful. Otherwise, we're a 6th seed and 5th in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about it, dude. Sorry to break that to you. Yeah, no, it's
David, you hit that right nail on the head.
Yeah, well done.
Congrats. Professor, number 1, the Lions have seemingly gotten so many draft picks right and seem to have a competent front office. How is it possible the defense is so bad? Aaron Glenn gone next season. Bonus. The new Indiana Jones is the worst film I've seen this year. As an 80s kid, it's crushing.
That is disappointing. I've never been a huge Indiana Jones guy, but now I definitely won't see it. So there's that. The Aaron Glenn, though, I do not think they have.
I don't blame him.
No, they went from a lot of bad personnel to they haven't had a lot of time to fix it, and they've got some key injuries. They
have no linebackers.
Yeah, what?
You got to give him a shot.
What do you
give him some guys?
Is he really that stupid? I don't think so. I think if you gave Aaron Glenn a really good, defensive personnel to work with, he might be a really good coordinator. And maybe they know differently, and he will be gone. But I
mean, you could have the best defensive scheme known to man, but if you don't have guys that can figure it out, you're going to be ass.
Yeah.
Some dude next, just one, but it's a doozy. Sorry, Jason. Last show, there was a question about whether or not MSU would win a Big Ten championship with Jonathan Smith, and you both said no. Graham cited that the league has gotten harder with expansion. My take is that it really hasn't got any harder for MSU as it has for the other big brands. In 2024, we get Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan, but Michigan gets USC, Washington, Oregon, and OSU. And hopefully in a couple years, you can throw us in there too as a quality opponent that they'll have to face every year.
I do think if Michigan State gets good, Michigan's path to success in the Big Ten is less. And it's because Michigan has two protected rivals every year, and that's Ohio State and Michigan State. Like, they have to play Ohio State every year. Michigan State's going to play Ohio State every other year. And Iowa, really, they were smart. They were like, oh, no. Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Minnesota are all our protected rivals. Now, I think Nebraska and Wisconsin especially would be good programs at some point with their coaching situations, but it certainly stops you from having to play more other teams more often.
Christopher Wilson next. The new college football is less enjoyable than before NIL and transfer portal. I want players to get paid, but the starting quarterback at Ohio State entering the transfer portal is Exhibit 1. All boxes checked there, but he's still entering. 1, getting paid well. 2, elitists of schools competing for championships.
Yeah, I mean, it is less enjoyable in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, this is just the way it is. The question is, will the sport become so much less enjoyable that it generation becomes a lot less popular, and then it doesn't work? I mean, if the finances get less or people are less into it, football is just so big in this country. It's gone the other way in the last decade from what it looked like it was going to, all the head injury talk. Nobody talks about head injuries anymore. And part of it is, to credit football, they got out ahead of it, no pun intended, and understood that if head injuries were the story of the next generation, the sport was probably going to die. And so now when you have a concussion, you're in protocol. You don't come back and play 17 more snaps that game. You're out. And so you don't have the concussions upon concussions. And so it'll be interesting to see the head damage that's done to the next generation, and that may save the sport. But, we just – the head trauma stuff we were no longer as concerned about.
Zabroka Spartan next. Number 1, happy transfer portal opening day for those who celebrate. It's like the methed out American version of the European transfer portal. Excuse me. 2, I watched Bye Bye Barry this weekend, and it honestly forced me to chill the F out about the Lions. It's fine to want more, but we're spoiled. I think it's fair to look at this Lions team and understand it is incomplete. And 3, Blue Adams will have to legally change his name to Green before the season starts.
There's going to be a lot of You're My Boy Blue stuff going on with the Blue Adams, the other old school reference.
Yeah.
For the Michigan State assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen Bye Bye Barry yet. I need to do it.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I really need to do it because Barry is. Yeah, I've even told part of the problem is it's one of those documentaries I want my wife to watch with me.
I will say when I did watch it, though, I did get the animosity when he did retire a couple days before the season. But then I heard Bobby Ross talk, and then I understood.
Part of me thinks time stood still for me then because
you didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, and I kept thinking, I mean, it was like a decade before I realized he wasn't just going to show back up. Because you remember that was the thing for a little while, Barry just come back. And eventually I was like, oh, wait a second. I think it was like his 50th birthday, and I was like, oh, I guess he's too old to come back now. But and I hadn't really moved on with my life either.
DeYuper next. I believe that a lot, but not all of the MSU players entering the portal and some of the decommits were encouraged by this new staff to look for new homes. It's not quite a Dion at Colorado situation, but Coach Smith surely expects to bring a few of his beeves with him to EO.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And there were some guys, but I can't imagine that the offensive linemen were all told to kick bricks, or anybody was actually told that, because it is hard to recruit offensive linemen in the portal. And so I'll be curious how many of those guys leave. And
look what happened to Colorado. Their offensive line was something else after 4 games.
Yeah, I don't know that it's actually going to work at Colorado. I don't. Unless he changes his philosophy. You cannot run people out. People, just because you're Dion doesn't mean you get to win. Like, you have to still treat people like humans, and if you basically try to replace everybody, people don't want to feel like you're trying to replace them.
And you have to win if you're going to act like that.
Yes.
Right? Nate Rhodes, next. Number 1, MSU women's hoops will have a better record and go further in the tournament than the men. 2, with what Smith is doing already, he will have 8 wins in the first year as head coach and 10 in his second season. 3, Lions will continue to win and will be the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And bonus, we really don't give enough respect and credit to women's athletics, especially basketball. It is a solid game to watch.
I do think MSU women's basketball is becoming a story. They haven't played anybody yet, but they're just beating people by like double, and they're scoring between like 90 and 105 points a game with Robin Fralick and this new pressing style. It looks fun. I've seen him play a couple times on TV. I watched the game yesterday. I watched the game at DePaul, and I think I'll go to the Central Michigan game. Again, they haven't played anybody yet, and so it's like, but it's worthy of a column at this point because it's fun to watch. It's something. Something's happening there.
But don't
now.
you think women's basketball, it just needs to be where each team kind of has a player, not like Caitlin Clark, but like Paige Beckers, where she's got handles and stuff like that. I think more people would tune into the game. Because I tune in for Caitlin Clark. If Iowa's on, I'll flip it on the second TV.
You're getting more and more of it. I mean, it's just generationally where. I mean, when Ariel Powers was at Michigan State, she was entertaining a player to watch. Is a scene, and so that you're getting more and more of it. And I mean, they're just more and more better athletes in the sport all the time, and it's because
it's not just women's athletics though. It's like the XFL. Like you have to have players in order if you're going to put a product that people want to watch consistently. You got to have a lot of good players.
100%.
All right, room temperature takes next. Number one, the smartest thing FSU could have done to make the playoffs is list their injured quarterback as week to week. If the committee thought there was a chance of him playing, they are in. 2. The Lions are not as serious contenders with his defense. And 3, on behalf of the entire Big Ten, roll Tide.
That quarterback week to week, it looked bad on the field, but you know what? We think we'll have him back in January. It's just a high ankle
sprain. He's talking
sprain.
with Aaron Rodgers about his treatment.
He went to Germany. They swirled his blood like they did with Kobe's, and it's ready to go.
What?
Didn't
Kobe got his blood swirled?
Yeah, they did something where that
was Germany, wasn't it?
What did I say?
I don't know. It happens Germany. In Mexico too. Tijuana.
I think I said Germany. I would not go to Mexico for that. So I wouldn't go to Mexico for any medical treatment.
I just got an ad for that today.
To go to Mexico for medical treatment?
Tijuana, for the stem cell, all that.
For what?
The guy was,
So are you going to go?
No, fuck no. I was looking into it. I just was seeing if I was intrigued by the story because I've heard athletes and Joe Rogan and people talk about how they get stem cells kind of reworked and it kind of. So I was looking into it. Next thing you know, I'm getting
What were you hoping? Yeah, targeted ads. What were you hoping was going to happen for you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to Tijuana to get anything done. Maybe a Brazilian butt lift, but that's about it.
That would be unbelievable. That is a story we're telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company. 402 South Washington Avenue.
I know I'm a rude, but I do get intrigued by certain things, and I do like to look at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Miracle Worker next. Florida State should decline any bowl and finish undefeated.
Well, the one thing that sucks, people are like, well, if they don't win their bowl game. Well, yeah, but since they're not in the playoff, half their team's going to sit out. That's the problem. Same with Georgia, too. It's just not really the real thing. So, yeah.
Ryan Schultz, number one. I'm glad FSU isn't in, but if they beat Georgia, they absolutely should claim a national championship and put it in their ring of fame. 2, fuck it, I have a question. Why did everybody in the media assume State was an automatic top 10 level team? Were Akins and Cooper both going to take colossal leaps in their game? Was Hoggard supposed to become consistent when he never has been? Was Booker supposed to be good? 3, Jason is an absolute legend for playing the Zion was a big deal and you've had too many donuts sound bites right after Graham finished thanking a listener for describing why he's endearing. You are endearing, Graham, but Jason putting you in your place makes the show great.
Appreciate you, Ryan.
I don't know if it was to put you in your place. It'd be funny.
Yeah, it worked.
It's all good fun.
Number 2 here. Why did everybody in the media assume Michigan State was automatically a top 10? Because in college basketball, the way it usually works, especially if you have a team that sort of finds itself late in the year, makes a run, looks good, looks like was a few plays away from perhaps being a Final Four team, and then has a lot of guys going back. You get older, you get better. That's usually the way it works. And then they have this recruiting class that I still think is one of their best recruiting classes. Now, Booker has been disappointing. I think, I thought he'd be at least a player who could help them this year. I didn't think he wasn't ready for that. And I did think Jay Nakins would take some steps. I think he has taken some, but not as much. Because I think he's a pretty self-aware guy, and he knew what the NBA wanted from him. And anyway, I thought that would happen. Cooper, I think, has taken some steps, but again, maybe overstated. But I still think they could be a top 10 level team because guess who's ranked number 1 now? Finally, everybody realizes is Arizona, and for a half, Michigan State was as good as Arizona. We see the snippets of it now. There are some flaws there, the roster construction, the absence of Hauser and what that does to their shooting, who they are offensively, especially when Amadi Sissoko's in the game. There are issues, and then A.J. Hoggard, of course. But there are reasons that just based on logic that this was going to be a top 10 team just based on where they ended last year and who was coming back and who was coming in.
Jarrett next, number one, just one request, Graham. Make me feel better about this MSU men's basketball team. I feel like they could lose at least 2 of the next 3.
Jarrett, instead of doing so, I will let our next hot taker, Suburban Spartan Dad, do that for me.
Number one, MSU Hoops will go undefeated in December. They are favored in every game except Baylor and will rise to the occasion. 2, seeing Lurch over at Purdue officiated like a normal big man in Evanston doesn't bode well for the Big Ten, for their Big Ten hopes. And 3, Brock Purdy is a young Kirk Cousins.
I hope that helped a little bit with the MSU basketball stuff. Look, I think the Wisconsin game's important. The Nebraska game will be interesting because Nebraska's not that great, but it's a tough environment. And early in the year when they haven't given up on life, it's a tough environment late in the year. They show up there. It's a cool fan base, cool arena. But it's not, it's a road game in the Big Ten, a true road game and all that stuff. And Baylor and Detroit, I think they will play that well. I think that'll be a really good game. And then you also see that everybody's vulnerable. Purdue is vulnerable. Purdue still has, Braden Smith's a really good player, but okay talent around Edey. And, Northwestern's obviously good. There are a lot of good veteran players in the Big Ten, but there's nobody who Michigan State can't beat in the Big Ten.
Pork Snizzle next. Would it have been possible to redshirt Xavier Booker because he looks like someone who is years away from even being a contributor? Players who were starters should have to sit out a year if they transfer.
A couple things. Booker doesn't see himself as a 5-year player. So why redshirt a guy if you can get some, even if you didn't, and I still think he can help them to some degree, I think. But the only reason a redshirt is because you believe late in a career a guy's development will be helped by having him for a 5th year. And Xavier Booker, if with the skills he has and the length he has, if it should not take that long for him to be a professional, even as slow as his start has been.
Ken Chu next, number one. Purdue, Duke, Marquette, Kentucky, and UConn all lose. MSU will move up with 2 Big Ten wins this week. 2, Florida State got hosed. Exclamation. 3, snow would be better than this dreary, rainy shit.
You think that, but the first time the worst thing about the first big snow, it's fun the night before. I always love in our neighborhood because it's so picturesque. I take a bunch of photos. I tweet it out. It's one of my old standbys here. And it's fun. The neighborhood looks amazing. The snow's coming down. The next day where I haven't left myself enough time to get somewhere before I have to snow blow the driveway and shovel off the car and everything, you're like, shit, I'm not sure that I love this.
Neurotic Pants next. Number 1, Vegas knew about Tucker's peccadillos. That's why MSU was accurately predicted to go 4-8 by many gamblers. This was always going to be a disrupted season. 2, administrators and journalists who say due diligence on Mel Tucker would have prevented his hire are admitting to knowing more about him than what is public knowledge. And 3, Barry Sanders' son contributes roughly the same amount of offense as Steven Izzo.
That's true. I mean, but both had similar high school careers. And I don't even think Barry Sanders' son was a starter in high school. I mean, he's not. He's there to be as Steven Izzo would call it, a human victory cigar.
Stephen Smith's kid looks just like him, though. It's kind of creepy. He's got the same face and everything.
Yeah, he's just shorter. He's just not as the number 2 here. Administration journalists who say due diligence on Mel Tucker would have prevented this are admitting knowing more about him. Well, a couple things. I don't know. Based on what I know, I am not sure that a background check would have prevented Mel Tucker from being hired at Michigan State or anywhere. And yes, you hear things, and there are things that are out there. But the fact that they haven't been reported yet speaks to responsible journalism and speaks to how difficult this stuff sometimes is as well. So, but Yeah, no, I don't know who's saying due diligence on Mel Tucker would have prevented this, because I don't know that that's actually true, and I'm pretty sure about that based on things we've said. It's possible, but I don't think so.
Todd Trusadell next. Number one, the committee got it mostly right. They were trying to avoid the disaster games like Michigan TCU and TCU Georgia. Georgia is favored by 14 over Florida State in the Orange Bowl. 2, if the NCAA is going to bring the hammer down on Michigan after the season, that is what we should be more upset about. And 3, a $500K salary quarterback will win the Super Bowl. The NIL money is not sustainable.
It is interesting that some of these quarterbacks in college football are going to make more annually than like Brock Purdy will if he wins the Super Bowl. And it does speak.
He was the last pick of the draft. I mean,
that's true. But there's nothing
going to be one of those guys.
But it's interesting. It's the way the contracts work in the NFL, right? They're not going to redo that contract until he's been playing for 3-4 years. Whereas in college football, you have one great year, you can transfer, you can grab $1 million here or there. It's a much more free market.
He was a good quarterback at Iowa State, right? I mean, he would have got some cash.
Oh, nowadays, yeah. I don't know what Iowa State's NIL situation is, but on the move, he might have. And yeah, no question.
Rich Searing, next, number one, can coaches chip in for NIL? If so, Smith and his crew need to pony up big time. 2, college basketball rankings make no sense. Why even bother before February?
Yeah, it doesn't. You probably shouldn't before at least January. Coaches cannot pay for NIL. They couldn't. They can't even. They can't even wrap up a bunch of muskox flannels and say, here, come play for me, which would be an enticing way to go. And if you have somebody you want to impress in your life this holiday season, and muskox flannel is the way to do it. Great gift idea. Go to gomuskox.com, and again, you can use the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, for $15 off your flannel purchase. There are also bundling options if you go to gomuskox.com/caw-caw, separate from the our promo thing, but the caw-caw will take you directly to their bundling options, and where you can a hat, shirt, flannel, and all sorts of savings if you want to get a bit of a package for somebody or something for yourself. Again, gomuskox.com. You are going to love the softness, the durability, the feel, and mostly, I think, it's all of that and how I look. I feel more confident about myself, and like we said, I am one hideous human being.
Tyler, next, number one, fresh off beating Georgia and Oregon, why not hammer the Alabama and Washington money lines again? 2, the only way the Lions advance far is if Graham really digs deep and plays the hits, and there is Theme Sunday in the playoffs where Philly, San Fran, and Dallas all lay an egg.
I do love theme Sundays. Usually I'm losing, actually, when they're theme Sundays or theme days. Like this was a theme week in the Premier League where the heavy favorites were in battles, and it wasn't great.
Did you put Harry up to texting me about the soccer shit?
No.
Like, he texted me twice with like screen grabs of
the Everton
of the score of the game or something.
Oh no, it's probably the Liverpool Fulham game that was fantastic. Every once in a while, and Harry and I have talked about this. There's a game, like there are a lot of games in the Premier League that I want to watch, and I'm like, oh, thank God Jason's not watching this. He'd never watch another game. But every once in a while, there's a game that's so end to end, so action packed. It was like this 4-3 dramatic, and yeah, you're just like, boy, if Jason saw this, he would actually enjoy it, and that's what was happening. Yeah.
All right. Ryan Rockwell, next, number one. Michigan is not a top 5 team. They just haven't played a team besides OSU that could prove it. Penn State doesn't count because of James Franklin, and the entire Big Ten West doesn't count because it's ass. They played a cupcake schedule, and it paid off for them. 2, the transfer portal can fill some holes at skill positions, but winning requires good recruiting and developing players. There's a few standouts like Bo Nix, but the best teams don't rely on the portal. That's why Jonathan Smith will succeed where Tucker didn't. And 3, I hit a plus 1,600 parlay. Texas OSU over, Alabama, FSU, and Scum. Thank you, Kirk and Brian Frentz, for being Mr. Ass 1 and 2. And thank you guys and Harry for the picks.
You're welcome. Glad that worked out.
Nice.
Should have taken our own advice. There was one game this week that I picked here, and I just didn't have enough on in real life, and I was angry at myself. I can't even remember which one it was now. It might have been Washington, where I just felt like I'm watching the game going, how did I not? Man.
I felt that way last night during the Chiefs-Packers game when I picked against everybody and their brother picked Green Bay too. Adam Blond next with just one. What's the real story on potential issues with our NIL program as we prepare to be active in the portal? Also, any updates on the DC position? Seems like a real tight-lipped deal.
Nothing on the DC position that I have to report. The NIL thing is something I'm looking into this week. I'm hoping to have a column later on this week. Might be next week. But I do think this is one of the big stories of this month and moving forward is where is MSU with its NIL collective, especially. Its NIL programs it has a collective. This is Sparta that works real well for a lot of other sports and even has a couple football players. But if SD4L is going to remain, which sponsors a lot of the basketball teams successfully, is going to remain the primary collective, official collective, doesn't need a rebranding. Is it being recruited against? What is the vibe in terms? Where are they with these contracts with football players who they abandon? If these guys stay, do they get their situations back? A lot of interesting stuff. I think they destabilize the situation unnecessarily. It's their right to do what they want with money, but I am curious to see where it is now and how it's affecting MSU as they try to construct a roster.
Austin Wolf next with just one. How big of a concern is MSU football offensive line situation? Not as many options in the portal to replace compared to other skilled positions.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, the short term, it's an issue. I mean, obviously the offensive line coach they just hired is pretty renowned, although that's not always a guarantee at Michigan State. It's a little see it to believe it. But in the short term, I think there is some concern there that the depth and having enough talent could be an issue. But that is not. I mean, that's been Michigan State's problem for a while. So I don't know that it would be any worse.
Jonathan Smith's burner, number one. I like this couch guy, but he wasn't at my intro presser. What the fuck? Too many donuts, mate? 2, I'm going to recruit the fuck out of this state and steal most of Michigan's recruits once Saban ends Harblow. Michigan gasp wasn't because they drew Bama in the playoffs. They knew Stallions didn't scout them. They're fucked. Roll damn tide. And 3, the Lions aren't ready for the Super Bowl. Our defense can't stop anyone, and something seems off with our offense, especially Goff. I'd know. I'm a motherfucking walk-on turned QB whisperer.
How much less faith in Goff do you have today than you had 5 weeks ago?
The same.
Okay.
I mean, you knew there's going to be ups and downs. He wasn't going to have like a perfect season where there's no turnovers. I mean, yeah, there was a lot the past 2 weeks, but there's no other options. I don't understand. I mean, right? The quarterback situation in the NFL is horrendous.
It is, and it seems worse than it's been in a while, to be frank.
Yeah. G.E. Miller, number one, the Solari evil laugh drop was an instant classic and needs to be in heavy rotation. 2, line judges are underpaid. That was grotesque. And 3, MSU's next D coordinator will be named Monday. It will be Phil Parker, Mike Tressel, or Jimmy Lake.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen while there's nothing worse than doing this, show, and then the second we finish, it's like, oh, huge breaking news at Michigan State. They hired, Urban Meyer's the offensive coordinator. Dang, that would be interesting to report. So I'm hoping it doesn't actually happen Monday. The Solari evil lap drop. I don't even remember that.
I don't either.
We'll have to see if somebody could find that or remind us of where it is. That would be great.
Connor Ryan next, number one. Georgia going 1-6 after a narrow Bama loss is aggressive, particularly the lack of chatter around it. And 2, the Lions surely will lose in the divisional round at home. And 3, as soon as Saban disappears, Caleb DeBoer will be the face of college football.
The thing about DeBoer at Washington, and I like him a lot. I think he's a great offensive mind. He's obviously a good coach, knows how to organize a team. He's got what do they have, like 12 sixth-year seniors on that Washington team? He's still a one-quarterback coach at that level. Like, I think he's terrific. But Saban has done it at multiple schools with multiple eras, with different types of teams. He's adjusted in the fly. I want to see DeBoer because Washington is not a place that's guaranteed to win.
Dave Lakin next. Number one, Michigan's championships are irrelevant as Central Florida's 2017 undefeated season. 2, the over-under for the times Dan Campbell adjusts his hat during a post-game press conference should be set at 6. And 3, the Pistons will have the worst record in the NBA and will still only get the 5th pick.
And I don't even think there's somebody we know yet who's like a guarantee. It isn't even a great draft. So it's not. This was a year they're supposed to take a step forward. The Cade Cunningham injury a year ago set them back. They've got a roster that Yeah, it's a lot of parts that are. I still think it's in a good place overall, and I think you can panic now and screw it up. Like if you fire the GM and the new GM comes in and wants his own people, including the young parts, that doesn't work. You finally got something that like I would, if I were the Pistons, I would have a little bit of patience here. They've had horrible injury luck. I do believe the roster, as it was intended to be constructed before the injuries, was a 30-win team. And the Ivy, they were always going to have to move one of their young parts, and I don't like the way Monty Williams has handled Jaden Ivey. I don't like that at all, and so that's the one real concern. But I would still like to see it play out a little longer.
Bo McJunkin's next. Number 1, Graham calls us out for not wanting games to matter because Michigan gets Bama. Yes, Graham. Michigan fans totally thought games mattered when they got the 2011 Sugar Bowl after losing to us. They surely aren't saying this now because they lost their easy road. 2, Jim Harbaugh is the ultimate panderer specialist with his "I care about my players and would take a pay cut" nonsense. Oh, really, Jim? Then why have you tried to leave your players for years? And 3, the Santa Ono behavior and Tony Petitti vengeance tour are beyond cringeworthy. You morons dropped your case and accepted a suspension from Tony. I can't wait until this all crumbles.
A lot of people are getting on Santa Ono, the president of Michigan. I mean, he's had some really Hallmark movie style embraces with Blake Corum and whatnot. But I don't, is he
tweeting bet?
Yeah, is he? I mean, yeah. I mean, it's maybe a little overdone, but he's the president of the university, and he's certainly got a lot of people.
Santa.
Yeah, it's December. What are you going to do?
Kermit the Spartan. Number 1. I was a little surprised to see a pearl-clutching post about the Brickin' for Chicken promotion of all things. I was not supposed to see it. It was Solari.
Not surprised.
I was not surprised to see it was Solari. Weird dude. 2, Michigan hoping for Florida State and then groaning when they got Bama is perfectly on brand. Even in the postseason, they're leaning into cowardly scheduling. And 3, college football postseason was better before the playoff. More bowls felt like it mattered. There was more fun going to a bowl. There was more fun watching other intriguing matches. Players also didn't commonly sit out. Get off my lawn playoffs.
No, it was better. It's never going to be back that way, and maybe it should have been changed a long time ago. But it was a system that was, sometimes there's a sweet spot where a system really works for at least for some people. It worked for fans, I should say, for a lot of years, and not for the football players who weren't getting paid and were playing essentially on concrete carpet, it's good God. I mean, the stuff that I can't even believe, like the old Spartan Stadium turf and the old Silverdome back in the day, it was basically cement with a little bit of a carpet over it. It's amazing that we put people through that. The Brickin' for Chicken thing is it was a promotion where the more free throws the other teams miss, the more stuff that Michigan State, I don't know, Solari didn't like it. People are getting on him about it.
He didn't like it for who?
He didn't like that
Michigan State.
Yeah, was doing a promotion that relied on the failure of the other team. It was not one of Solari's.
What's happening to you guys over the weekend? What the fuck are you guys doing?
It was a Solari only weird take. No question about it. Wow. Solari has lots of interesting good thoughts. I didn't think
he's anti-Brickin' for Chicken.
He's anti-Brickin' for Chicken. Yep.
Matt Venny, number 1. Any of the other 12 Big Ten teams could have played Iowa in the championship game, and every single one of them would have had a realistic shot of winning it. 2, although I agree with the playoff selections, it can be argued that Florida State's win over Louisville was more impressive than Michigan's over Iowa. And 3, if Graham was within an hour drive away from the playoff committee on Sunday, the next story worth telling would have been his own version of being in county jail. That would be great if you had your own county jail story.
It would be. I mean, I don't know if I'd still have a job, but
hopefully it's not for 72 days. But
but I don't know if I got arrested for like trespassing or assaulting the selection committee. I'm not sure that even if it was like a 5-day stint and I could use some vacation time, I'm not sure that stretch would be the short stretch would keep me from getting fired.
Makes for a good story.
It would no for one good promotional story worth telling presented by Midtown Brewing Company. It would be fantastic. I don't think any of the other you said any of the other 12 Big Ten teams could have played Iowa in the championship game, and every single one of them would have had a realistic. Yeah, you're probably trying to think anybody who's really really awful. but you're probably right.
Aledo next. Number 1, Alabama wins by 24 over Michigan. Michigan is going to get exposed. And 2, Jonathan Smith coaches up Nate Carter to a Heisman contender next year. And 3, the next offensive coordinator for Iowa will be Mel Tugger. We hire Brian Ferentz as MSU's defensive coordinator. He knows how to keep the score low.
Yeah, you could do a reverse thing where you hire a really bad offensive coordinator to coach your defense.
No, it's not even funny. Yeah. Like, it's not even just joking about it. I don't like it.
Look, Nate Carter, I do not think Nate Carter is Kenneth Walker. I think we all know that. But I do think Nate Carter could be an upper-tier Big Ten running back if he had a good offensive line. I think we've seen flashes from him. He was in a rough spot this year with, nobody respected their passing game. The offensive line was pretty average. I mean, it was a hard team to be a running back for, and he held up, and I think he did a commendable job.
Couch on fire next. Number 1 on Tom Watson discussion. He was 59 years old and needed a par on 18 to win his 6th British Open after a hip replacement surgery the year prior. 2, MSU fans shouldn't do the woe is me on portal madness. Most teams will experience this. And 3, the Tigers' rebuild so far is sad.
I don't know if it's sad. It's
sad.
Is it?
I'm okay. I signed Maeda for a 2-year contract so far. I know. It's just, as a fan, it's kind of a bummer right now.
It's not exciting.
To not have your name, like to have your team in on the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. I mean, you could have just put your name, even if no one invited you. Just put it on there. The Tigers were interested.
Hey, we'd like to.
Why not?
We'd like to write our names down on this.
Fuck it. Can we nominate ourselves? I mean, even if we're not in the running, it's unbelievable. Couch Hans Jurgen, number 1. My cause, my cleats would be Graham Couch's termination. My cause, my cleats would be Graham Couch's termination. Sorry.
Thank you, Hans.
2, tragedy struck this weekend as my son asked for a glazed donuts, but my local bakery was out. I failed as a father and as a man. 3, the good news is this weekend I picked the correct score of the Alabama